Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to speak about the feminist movement, and I did find this wonderful video by Finding Sky on YouTube that we are going to react to, as we believe she is a former feminist, and she's no longer a feminist because of what she says she found out about feminism. So, gentlemen, we are going to listen to this, and then I will give you my commentary as usual. Please subscribe to the channel and leave a like on the video and also a comment.
At one point, this movement had genuinely pure intentions. It's the reason I have a right to vote and work and be educated. Feminism changed our lives as women for the better. So I'm sorry, but I can't help but feel like now it's doing the complete opposite.
There is an argument to be made that feminism changed women's lives for the worse. But even her, who was a former feminist, can't let go of some of these ideas because, well, they give her immense advantages. It's not about the fairness of it all, it's about the advantages she received. So while her narrative is good, she's still embroiled in the ideology because it benefits her.
It's a common feminist position to be anti-tradwife. They insist that tradwives have some sort of Stockholm syndrome where they've fallen in love with their own oppression, claiming that it perpetuates traditional gender roles which have held women back. But I thought what actual feminism was supposed to be about was supporting women's freedom of choice. That means supporting them if they choose to climb the corporate ladder and supporting them if they choose to be a housewife. I thought the whole point of feminism was to respect a woman's freedom of choice even if it's not the choice we would personally make. It was to recognize that there's not a one-size-fits-all lifestyle for women and that they should be able to prioritize what's important to them. Feminism will argue against this by saying that choices don't exist in a vacuum and society impacts your ability to make autonomous decisions, but you can make that exact same argument on the other side too. I could sit here and tell you that your decision to be a feminist is because social media has brainwashed you into believing that women are oppressed. So your choice to be a feminist isn't a real choice at all, but instead a reaction to your cultural environment. You can run in circles forever trying to make this argument against either side.
Now, the thing is that for most of the arguments that have to be made about the goodness or the terribleness of feminism, it is on the results. Because a lot of people do like to bring up the points like that because manpower was doubled almost overnight. The wages that were being paid out to fall because there's just more available labor. So that impacted the family where one income would be able to take care of one family. And on top of all that, because both parents were out of the house, they had to hire outside help to take care of their children and rely more and more on a very mediocre education system. So you could make an argument that it has its pros and it has its cons, but if you're going to argue about who gets the brunt of this, obviously we know who got the brunt of this. Because while nobody is being forced to get married or have children, it's a necessity of our existence. But at the same time, the person, the man who's supposed to facilitate this in the smoothest fashion, they are vilified and denied opportunities simply because they are men.
That's because it's a dumb argument. Who are you to assume that another woman's choices aren't autonomous? The mere assumption of that is actually quite anti-feminist of you.
Now, what is actually more important and disturbing to me is how the messaging is done versus actually how it's practiced. Maybe you could talk about all you want rights for women, you want this and that for women, but in practice, you want advantages that also disadvantage men. You would say that, you could use arguments like, the patriarchy has always put women down, so now it's time for women to take over or to have the opportunities. But then I would ask you, does that mean that right now men have to step aside and give you all the opportunities and and for themselves to be denied the same opportunities? Is that what you're arguing? They'll tell you no, they want just equality, but in practice, that is what they practice. They want to disadvantage men and advantage women. And it's always at the expense of men. We can see that everywhere. In the West, marriages are doing badly. But who gets to enjoy all the benefits of after being divorced? The majority is women.
This is the female version of Sneeko calling everyone who disagrees with him a bot. You're accusing grown women of being incapable of coming to their own autonomous conclusions. That means you're doing the exact thing that you constantly accuse men of doing to you. Maybe some women like traditional gender roles. That's cool. Let them do their thing just like you're allowed to do yours. I'm the most masculine woman I've ever met. I should be the first in line to be championing the end of traditional gender roles. But I'm not like this because I'm resisting the patriarchy. This is just a part of how I am. I like buying stocks, playing with boobs. I'm just a chill guy. WAP. Women against porn. Except in today's terms, it means wet ass put. With modern feminism currently preaching sexual liberation, it may be surprising to learn that at one point it was the complete opposite. In the 1970s, anti-pornography was a growing part of feminism. And when you think about it, it actually makes perfect sense.
This is the thing. You could say the 70s was this, but the movement is structured so that it breaks down the norms slowly over generations until you have what you have now. So she is making decent arguments, but they're all quite shallow. She's not gone deeper because she's not looking at the entire ideology and how it is because it is a psychological operation by Westerners. We know that, and it's because of that she's not able to follow the thread from this movement to what you have right now, which is to dismantle all kinds of systems that are set up, which they call the patriarchy. So until this moment, they have men pretending to be women. And there's nothing you can tell them about it, despite the fact that it's a delusion. They're entering delusions into our lives and trying to force people to reset love. It's a direct line from these kinds of progressive movements.
Because it's consistent with the core values of feminism, to demonize the objectification of women and stop the fetishization of sexual violence against them.
Yes, but what do we see now? They tell women, oh, sexual liberation. You can sleep with whoever and whomever you want and how many people you want. It doesn't matter what it does to you psychologically or materially. You can do it because sexual freedom. This is what she's not saying. She's mentioned it, but she doesn't see that the thread follows that because of the initial ideology. What is happening now is just a couple of generations down the line. In fact, I think it started almost immediately. Because we are not good people. We need structure and laws.
We know that corn is overwhelmingly aggressive towards women. We also know that consumers are more...
You see, this is actually the stupidity that I don't like. She's just sneaking it in now, the victim mentality. They are the victims. Oh, it's particularly aggressive, but they're the ones who receive the most money from it, the most mileage from it. What is she talking about? No, it is not overly horrible to women. Most of them that you see them all over the internet acting like they're normal people, they enjoy that life. They enjoy the degeneracy, and she's trying to run away from that.
More likely to commit acts of sexual violence, less likely to intervene if they witness an assault, and more likely to objectify and dehumanize women. Corn is seriously bad for...
I can't take somebody who says objectify women seriously. I can't. It's a normal reaction, normal sexual reaction from a man to a woman. When they see somebody who's beautiful, they want it. These new terms they brought up, objectification, what nonsense. The peacocking is part of the process of sexualization. But these people want these tame words to be thrown around because they also want to instill their own purity tests on how people interact, but through them, of course.
For both genders, but especially women. So to see the feminist movement glorify platforms like OnlyFans and other adult content feels like a complete slap in the face.
No, it is what it's meant to do. This is the logical end to the ideology and what it stands for. Because you speak on one side, you said you want equality, on this other side, you also want to do things without any repercussions. Or if there are repercussions, there should be as many possible get out of jail free cards for you, isn't it?
How can you possibly complain about how oppressive it is to be objectified and then objectify yourself for profit? I don't understand how modern feminists have come to this conclusion. Actually, that's a lie. I do understand. I completely understand. Because it would go against the sexual liberation movement. It goes against the sex positivity narrative. But
Yes, because that's part of the initial purpose of this ideology, young lady. That's the initial purpose of it. So you don't get surprised by the results of what the movement is.
one honest look at the statistics and it's blatantly clear. There's nothing liberating or positive about this industry. So what happened? Why did the anti-corn feminist protests stop? This article explains it perfectly. Anti-corn feminists were labeled sex negative in an era of feminism that was heavily influenced by liberalism. Individual choices as opposed to mass liberation became the forerunning feminist agenda. If that doesn't perfectly encapsulate the modern feminist movement, I don't know what does.
The entire concept of feminism is a child of liberalism. I don't know how she can divorce these two ideologies because one begets the other.
Current movement wants all the ideals of feminism without having to sacrifice anything for it. The movement doesn't want to give up porn. It doesn't want to give up casual sex. That would be infringing on my personal freedoms. But maybe true liberation requires some personal sacrifice of those beloved freedoms. You can't eat a pound of cake every day and expect to lose weight. Your goals require a sacrifice. The issue of equal pay is another primary subject that feminists bring up. It's also probably the #1 most misrepresented topic in feminism. The gender pay gap does not exist because of the patriarchy oppressing women. The pay gap only exists because women are more likely to choose lower paying jobs. If you compare a man,
they also work less hours, they work more dangerous hours, now they're less willing to move to new places for opportunities, etc., etc.
and a woman working at the same place, in the same position, with the same amount of experience, working the same amount of hours, the pay is exactly the same. But when you compare the average income of men versus women, there's obviously going to be a gap. This is because men choose careers like car mechanics and truck driving, whereas women choose careers like teaching and nursing. A quick comparison of these incomes, and it's easy to see why there's a pay gap. It's not misogyny that creates this gap, it's just preference. Women,
well, at least she does represent that particular fact well. It's being used in the West a lot, and also in the third world, it's moving there. So you see, there's a lot of women empowerment programs all over the third world, but there's none for men, or at least just normal, equal access to opportunities. They use the lie of lack of access to opportunities to unfairly advantage the woman against most men. Unfortunately, it's the men that institute this.
Have all the freedom in the world to go be an automotive mechanic, just like men can become teachers, but that's not typically what each gender wants to do on average. So from the outside, when you show the statistic of the gender pay gap, everyone's jaw drops and jumps to conclusions about sexism, but if you just look a little deeper, it's easy to see why it's there. If you're a woman and you're unhappy with your salary as a teacher, go be a truck driver. It is actually that simple. Something I can't stand about the feminist movement, and really many other modern movements, is how evasive they are to taking responsibility. If you're not happy with your pay, change jobs. You don't have to make it a political movement. You don't have to find someone to blame.
They have to make it a political movement because all the things that actually pay the most are very hard to do, very strenuous, and they're very risky too. So they don't want to do those jobs. They've never wanted to do those jobs, but the ideology is pushing them to pretend they want these jobs. But everywhere you look, it's obvious they don't want those jobs. Go to a construction site. You're lucky to see one woman present who's actually doing the brick and mortar job. They will probably put most of the women in the back office, in the offices. It is what it is. But the ideology is telling them, no, you can't be like men, and they all pretend they can't be. But what they really want is the cushy jobs at the top where you sit in an air-conditioned office. That's what they want. The favoritism. Go for the top layer, where every man doesn't even, a small percentage, a minority of men get to sit. But now they just want to impose themselves there because feminism, equal rights. Equal rights means you also take the equal lefts. You take the hardships.
you can just do something to change your situation. You can't really talk about feminism without also talking about the red pill manosphere space. This is because they respond to one another culturally. The red pill purports that they have the solutions to these modern feminist problems. Spoiler alert, they don't. The red
Oh yeah, they do. You see, this is what I was telling you. It really just needs for you to put them on this other side. To know where they stand. Like her, she is a feminist still. And you see, the red pill movement triggers a lot of women and a lot of weak men because it's the truth. You don't like it. We don't care. It's the truth. And a lot of it, just like every movement, is a lot of charlatans. You cannot hold the words of charlatans against the facts of the movement. Get your facts straight, young lady.
red pill solution is extremely unrealistic for the majority of both men and women. The red pill has this idea that women need to just skip college and go back to being housewives, except that most of the men saying this would never be able to afford that lifestyle. Homie, you don't even have the career to be able to pay for the lifestyle of the woman that you want. The red pill will blame
And that comes down to what? You see, it's come now to that shaming. Oh, you don't have the career to do of the woman. What do you mean? All of you are just overrated. You think you're expensive. You're not expensive. You've overrated yourselves. You want to live lives you can't afford yourselves. Instead of being humble and sitting down with someone and building just like normal people. So now this nonsense has to come up because, of course, she's a feminist. It has to come up to try. Of course, Andrew Tate is the poster. He's a very successful, very eloquent, smart man. Very masculine, fit, all the things that men actually want. You can cry about it, but that's all we want. And because you're a woman, you don't understand it. Now you want to shame what we really want. No.
women for failing to fulfill their feminine roles without even recognizing that as men, they're failing just as badly at fulfilling their masculine ones. I really don't think that the red pill's idea of expecting men to be able to afford supporting an entire family on their one income is realistic at all.
It's never really been like that. It's never been. Women have always worked. But because you all poured into the work market, you cut all the wages now. Now, you see, she doesn't understand it fully. She has talking points. That's what this is.
I think in theory, the traditional family dynamic is a great idea and would make very happy, healthy relationships.
And it worked and it was there. And there's still many, many places across the world that happens where people are not as rich as America. But of course, these people live in this bubble, so they don't know anything. They think it has to because they want luxury. They want to live in luxury, doing the most menial jobs in the world, which anybody with a high school certificate can do. No.
But in modern times, less than 1/4 of men will ever be financially capable of achieving such a feat. In today's economy, the trad lifestyle is reserved for only the most prosperous men. But yet the red pill preaches it like it's the majority solution. Pew Research shows in 2022, only 23% of households had the husband as the sole provider of income. That means 77% of women were contributing to household income. Most guys just aren't out here making enough money to support himself, a woman, and kids. And in today's economy, I would say that's pretty understandable. What I don't see the red pill talking about is how a lot of women would love to adopt the traditional lifestyle, but there's just not enough prosperous men to go around.
That is nonsense. Or do you mean enough prosperous men? Who are you? You're just a woman. You're supposed to contribute to building homes. That's how it's always been. If you look at the African culture, the Maasai women build the homes, the mud huts that they have, they build them. What is she talking about? She wants, you see, I told you they want prosperous people, they want luxury for simply existing. Actually, this video started well, but it's ending up to the same bubble nonsense, the same myopic thinking that has really destroyed the West because they don't want to get out of their own way because these women just want luxury. There's not enough successful men. Get over yourself, young lady. You're not supposed to live in luxury. If you can afford it, and you're just you're a basic person, you can't afford it. You don't have the talent, you don't work as hard, you're not as smart. That is a majority of people. You're basic, you work where you can and live that life. But no, all of you want to live in luxury.
Given an alternative, many women might very well choose to be a housewife.
Yes, because now it's easy and it's cheap, and you can basically do nothing. You have machines for everything. So that of course you want that because it's easy. Because you didn't realize how working in offices, how difficult it is to take responsibility. Now you want to pass it on. Oh no, they don't want. They want that, of course, and they also want to sleep around, and they want to do all the nonsense, girl trips, and getting drunk. That's what it is. And the deal is simply not good enough. No man wants to put in that effort for such measly returns.
Feminism might be the only movement that can get away with constantly complaining about how oppressive it is to be objectified and then simultaneously objectify themselves. The problem is that this movement wants all the benefits of feminism without any of its consequences. Say you want equality until you realize that means splitting the bills, unclogging the toilet, and having to kill the spider. In modern relationships, it's common for the financial theory of the woman to be everything he makes is ours and everything I make is mine, rather than both partners contributing equally, which is what feminism claims to.
People have always contributed men and women into a homestead. I need for people to remember that. But men do not have to be disrespected because a woman contributed. That's what she's missing. The disrespect that comes for you doing an adult task. Ridiculous.
Want to do. There's a book called Sexual Utopia and Power by Roger Devlin that sums this up perfectly. The modern woman wants all the benefits of a traditional marriage but is unwilling to pay the cost. She wants a man to marry her without her having to marry the man. Some feminists are even demanding that there be quotas for women to be in executive positions, but they never talk about there being quotas for women in bricklaying. It's clear that modern feminism wants all the benefits of something without any of its sacrifice.
Well, that would be my own assessment in the end. The video is about a 60-70%. She is still in that miasma of the Western feminist, and for that reason. And I guess the way the video is designed is meant to be that quick. So there's no real looking deeper into the reasons. So, but all in all, I think it's a pretty good video. This is Finding Sky. You can go and subscribe there, but she's not my cup of tea, generally speaking. So she has a healthy 121,000 subscribers. Having said that, what do you think? Leave a comment, leave a like on the video or a dislike, whatever you fancy. And subscribe to the channel. And until next time, peace.